Schmitt, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on that a little bit, Mr. Jaffer, in December, I had called for an investigation in the Department of War handling of the post-Salt Typhoon risk. In particular, the department's failure to ensure its communications, voice, text, video were protected from foreign espionage vulnerabilities. In your view, what are the structural problems in federal procurement that make it possible, or I should say, what should Congress consider as far as the federal procurement process to make that better?
Well, Senator Schmitt, certainly I think that the procurement system is one place where Congress and the executive branch can do a lot more to ensure effective cybersecurity. In the procurement process, because you're spending our taxpayer dollars and people want these contracts, we can impose whatever requirements we want on them. To me, that's a much more preferable way to address the regulatory burden that folks want to put on industry. It's because if people want government contracts, they should secure the systems to the government standards. At the same time, we're seeing the Department of War today pivot to a much more innovative approach to procurement, a much more commercial approach to procurement. I think that's the right thing to do. It allows us to get newer, better technology in faster. And there we have to make sure that we're not overimposing cybersecurity burdens that will prevent us from getting the technology we want. There's a balance there that we can achieve, I think one that we can do successfully as we need to going forward.
I agree in the sense that we have a lot of leverage as it relates to those contracts. In your view, what are some of the minimum cybersecurity standards or audit compliance that should be included in those contracts?
What I do think we should do is require companies that sell to the federal government to go through a security audit and to demonstrate to an independent third party that they've successfully met things like the NIST cybersecurity framework, right? That they're applying it effectively and they're implementing it effectively. That to me is a good starting point. If they're able to show that to the government doesn't need to do additional work on its own to qualify them. They can do that ahead of time. They get the audit paperwork, present to the government, and then become a contractor much faster. To me, that's a way to get smaller, faster companies in and not put an additional federal regulatory burden upon them while still requiring them to meet good cyber hygiene requirements like the NIST framework.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask you, in your testimony, you emphasized that prescriptive regulations cause us to lag behind adversaries for a bunch of different reasons. You warned that this shift in attention from managing real risk to managing paperwork means provider can legally and fully be compliant, but still be very exposed. Can you speak to the impact that we've seen already from the previous administration's more prescriptive, checklist-driven approach, what that's kind of left behind, and what we can learn from that moving forward?
So we know that the checklist, and we have evidence of this, have not been successful. There are examples where individuals or organizations that do a checklist managed by checklists, they miss things. And in this environment where the adversaries are evolving on a daily basis, using a checklist would in a sense be looking in a rearview mirror. We've heard talk about the flexibility in the NIST framework. That was designed to withstand the test of time. It's worked over a decade. So I think the better approach, and we're doing this, is to engage with our government partners on a regular basis, including the intelligence community and the law enforcement community, and talk about what we're observing, what the government is observing, how to mitigate those activities. And we do hold ourselves accountable. I can tell you the frontline practitioners in our companies work every day to defeat these attacks. We don't hear about their success rate, but they are dedicated and passionate about security, and they are held accountable within their organizations to their customers. And finally, I'd say in the context of contracts, that's a legitimate avenue for negotiations to talk about the security requirements that are needed. And we've been doing that for years through service level agreements and other ways to reach an understanding of what's expected.
So with the 43 seconds that I have remaining, I just throw kind of two questions out for whoever wants to grab on them, because I do think these are important. What we learned, I think, from Salt Typhoon is that there's a lot of deficiencies in the hardware that currently exists that's outdated, and I know there's efforts to sort of update that. Can you give me an update on where that stands, and why, as it relates to satellite security, what are some, just simple things like enabling encryption? Why are we not further along with that? So hardware issues and updating that, and then encryption for satellites.
So I think a couple of aspects, certainly on the hardware side, major area of emphasis and, ultimately very important to pay attention to the supply chain of not just the hardware, but the software that's going into those systems, putting together, transparent messaging around the source of all of the software aspects that are incorporated into in deliverable systems. There are a number of explanations that have been provided for some of the complexities that are created by enabling encryption. I would say it's a little bit of a surprise, and I think there's probably further discussion needed on some of the limitations that are preventing encryption from being broadly used on satellite. It's something that we've strongly advocated for. We've made those tools available to many of our customers that are using those using that equipment over satellite links. And we're still seeing to this day that equipment not being enabled, that feature not being turned on, and those links being left out in the clear. Do you think a part of the driver for that, this shift towards the concept of a zero trust architecture where each system and subsystem is assumed to be untrusted hasn't been fully adopted across the satellite industry more broadly? Certainly appears to be potentially a misunderstanding of who's responsible for that layer of security in the overall system.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Schmitt. Senator Hickenlooper, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of you for being here. Appreciate all the work you're doing.